Welcome back to Chapter 3, and we just finished talking about variations in attachment with children and their families. We're going to pick back up again with roles of parents. Certainly the next role is their role as being just an individual and lifelong personal development. You'll remember from your other courses we talk about Erikson, trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt. Some of those should ring a bell. And you will remember, hopefully, that Erikson also had adult stages, which have to do with leading to personal fulfillment as far as productivity and enjoyment with their life and being happy with where they're headed. So we know that parents are working on those roles. We know the role of worker. Often we'll find a conflict of work and parenting, and that parents and loved ones make hard choices when it comes to spending time with their children or what they can do as far as being a parent or a loved one and volunteering in your classroom. We know that there are different options for working parents. Some parents work from home, some parents commute, some parents work tremendously long hours, and this role of a parent as far as being a worker often comes into conflict with their role of being a parent, and doing what they believe is best for their child sometimes comes in conflict with what they have to do because they get paid to be somewhere and they have to be there. The next roles we'll look at is that of being a role as a consumer, and we know that in economic times such as we have now, it often takes two working parents or two working grandparents or two working family members to help raise the children in the family because costs are increasingly going up and it's very expensive to raise a child. Those of you who are parents are familiar with these types of costs, between things like providing additional housing, paying for child care, after school care, before school care, thinking ahead about setting aside money for college or for extras that you would like to do with your family. And so certainly we think of, especially with child care, having that trilemma, meaning it's a triple dilemma, in that we want to find quality care, but we also have to find affordable care. And often the more quality the care is, the more it costs. Such is the same for those of you who are interested in school age. Sometimes your local elementary school is great quality and sometimes it's not, and so you look for other choices such as in private schools or maybe homeschooling, but again those are less affordable options for many parents, and so this does create a dilemma for them. Many of the reasons that quality care is hard to find is because there's not appropriate compensation for staff, and we know that all teachers at all ages are severely underpaid for what they do. They also have a role as being part of the member and the community, and remember that some loved ones find time to play additional roles in the community through volunteering or through service organizations or through your schools, and then some parents can't even find the time to do that based on our previous role, which is that of being a worker. Our next role is that of being an educator. A parent is a child's first teacher. It is probably their most important teacher, and it is their most long-lasting teacher, in that no matter how old you get, your need for your loved ones never diminishes. Now, as we look in the chapter, and I hope you'll read about and look at these different parenting styles, there are three different types that we tend to find being present in many homes. And the first one is that idea of being authoritarian. This is the mentality of it's my way or the highway. I set the rules, I'm the loved one, I'm the parent, and you'll do what I say. Often this is a system based on punishment for children. It's a system based on very few choices for children, and so children who grow up in homes where their parents are very authoritarian in nature often at a certain age, particularly during adolescence, kind of try to resist those types of parenting styles. The next style is that of being permissive. This is the whatever you want to do is whatever you want to do kind of permissive type of thinking, and we often see that parents who parent using this style often have few rules, or if they have rules, they're very inconsistent, and children enter into our classrooms where we have some rules or we have some guidelines, and they often have a difficult time functioning. And the last one here is the one that is the most preferred. It is that of being authoritative. Now, in this type of parenting, children often have choices and they're allowed to make decisions. There are guidelines and parents are still in charge, but they also understand that with each individual child, there are exceptions. There are different ways that we can do things, and so certainly this is somewhere between the first two. It's not my way or highway, it's not anything goes, but it's somewhere in the middle where I make decisions for my children and for the children in my care, but then they also have some choices as well. Certainly part of our role is also to help socialize our children, and as you're looking in your chapter, you'll see there's some information about how we help to socialize our children in getting them into groups or going to school or preparing them for formal schooling, for things where they just interact with other children and other people. And that is also part of our role, is educating them and getting them ready for real life and for that formal schooling that will one day happen. I want you to think about it. If you can, get a parent to tell you a little bit about what he or she has done in the past couple of days, or if you're a parent yourself, think about all the things that you've done in the past couple of days for your children. Consider all the roles that you've used. Perhaps you've been a worker and an educator. Perhaps you've been a provider in consumer means, but surely you have done several of these things and have understood or can understand by listening to someone tell you about the demands that are on a parent's time. Also consider what roles seem to be in conflict. Sometimes our worker role conflicts with our education role, in that I can't volunteer at my child's school if I have to be at work, and I have to be at work so that I can make money, so that I can pay for the things that my child needs. And so you can see how sometimes three roles can interfere with each other without a lot of meaning to, but it does happen. And then I also want you to think about how could these insights help you as a teacher relating to families. If you're already a parent, you're very familiar with the types of pressures and stresses in parenting. If you're not, sometimes it helps to talk to other parents and other families to see how these different roles affect the children in their care, which ultimately will affect how you relate to them as a teacher. Now, we're going to look a little bit about how parenthood is an emotional experience and why do people even become parents. Sometimes people choose to become a parent because it's an expansion of yourself. Many children have an emotional desire to have children, to raise little people that are a lot like them. Some people come to parenting through moral values. They want to raise up better people. They want to do something for the good of society. Some people come to parenting as a source of affection. I want to have a baby because that baby will love me. We've heard people say things like that. Some people come to parenting because they think it just sounds fun. They look at all the little kids around them and they say, gosh, I would love to do that. That looks stimulating, that looks fun, that looks energetic. I want to do that. And other people come to parenting as it's an achievement. It's a part of the list of things they want to do in life, like buy a house, have a car, get a job, and have kids. It's just an achievement that they want to make. So there are lots of different reasons that people come to being a parent. Ooh, my light went off. If you look at the discussion for Chapter 3, you'll see it's linked below the PowerPoint, and it talks about a parent of one of the 3-year-olds in your classroom comes to you and confides that they're about to have a divorce. There are some questions in that dialogue. For extra credit, certainly you can read the dialogue, answer the questions, and email those to me. I look forward to hearing from you soon. All right, here's some other reasons that parents become parents. Some become parents because they understand it gives them power or influence on others, influence on the future. It helps them feel a certain level of status, that if you're a parent, that you feel like you're a better person. Social comparison. We know that there's much pressure for young people once they're married or once they reach a certain age to have children. And we know that sometimes that pressure comes from their parents or their grandparents. We know that often this is a really hard situation, especially for people who don't have children or have a difficult time having children, because they feel the pressure of that social comparison. And we know for those who are unable to have children that often this is a very painful thought, that not only do they feel that they want to be a parent and can't, but they also feel that there is some social comparison. These are the people who have kids and these are the people who haven't. Sadly, if this is one of you, please know I extend to you my thoughts, and I understand that sometimes talking about all these families can be hard. Economic utility. A long time ago, people had children for work reasons. They wanted to have more money and more people to work in their family, and so the more kids they would have, the more well off that their family would be. I suppose in some cases this could still hold true if you had a family business and you wanted to pass it on to your children. That might be a reason that you want to have kids. You want to pass on your economic place, your things that you've worked very hard for. Now, our textbook does talk about some emotional responses to having children, and remember that many people don't think about this when they have kids. They get all excited, or perhaps it was unplanned, but it is irrevocable. Once you've had a baby, the baby's here. There is no turning back. And so for many adults, there's an emotional response to that, understanding that, oh my goodness, I'm a parent for forever. No matter what you do in your parenting journey, that child is still yours in some way, a connection of you. Even if you choose to have your children be adopted, they are still in some way biologically, at some point they were connected to you, and probably still in your hearts and in your heads. Certainly we know that many young parents, especially new parents, and those of you working with young children, those parents can often feel very restricted and isolated and very fatigued. It's very tiring to take care of children 24/7. And so we know that many families and many parents and loved ones have that kind of an emotional response where they're just tired. This is a lot of work, and so they often can feel isolated if they have little help, or it could feel isolated for other reasons. Perhaps they live nowhere near family, and so they may feel that way. The next one to look at right here, this non-instinctual love, is an important one. Your textbook talks about a lot of myths about having a baby, that when you have this child, you just feel that love and that bond for that child, and we do know that over time, parents build that emotional response. But many people would tell you that that's a hard time to come to terms with, that it took them a while to feel that true love connection, that true attachment with their children. My own mother would have told you that she didn't feel like she was a natural parent, and she often felt guilty about that because she didn't know that there was such a thing as it takes time to build those bonds. It takes time to learn to become a better parent. Now, I would tell you as an adult, she was an awesome parent, and I miss her very much. But she would tell you that it just didn't come natural, and it took a long time. And that is a myth that we want to dispel for many people. There's also a lot of guilt that parents have about not being the perfect parent. Many parents set themselves up emotionally for failure because they think, I want to provide all these things I didn't have as a child, and when they can't do that, they experience guilt. Or perhaps they didn't have a great parent role model, and so they may feel like they're not living up to what is best for their children for that reason. This one is where we're going to start. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and we'll pick up here.